Hello everyone! Today we're going to be reviewing the different types of graphs that we have studied so far. So I need you to grab yourself a sheet of paper and a pencil. There are three types of graphs that we have studied. We have studied about the bar graph, the line plot, and the picture graph or pictographs. So let's see what each graph means and why they are used. A bar graph. This is what a bar graph looks like. It has bars of different colors. You have numbers and labels. So a bar graph is used to compare data to show which one's bigger, smaller, or if things are equal to. Let's go to a line plot now. In a line plot, we use x's to represent the frequency in which something occurs. So we use a number line and we use x's to represent the frequency. So a line plot shows data on a number line. It shows how often something occurs. So like in our spinner activity, how many times did I spin and land on a certain letter? Last but not least is the pictograph, or some people call it picture graph. This type of graph uses pictures to display the data or the amount. Picture graphs show the data in picture form. Now, let's answer some questions using all three of these types of graphs. Now, everyone, we're going to be looking at another graph. This graph that we're going to be looking at is called a bar graph. A bar graph has very specific and interesting things in it. It has a title. This bar graph's title is called The Favorite Pet. Next, down at the bottom, we see another title. I like to call it a subtitle because it's a little smaller version. It's talking about the type of pet. We have labels: cat, dog, fish, bird. Next we have from 0 to 9 tells me how many or the number of students. So let's look at the first question. The first question is, how many more students like dogs than cats? I want you to take a few minutes and figure that out for yourselves. So please press pause. Okay, I hope you tried to figure that answer out on your own. Let's see what it is. 4 more students like dogs more than they like cats. More than they like fish. Let's see why. Well, if I were to go up my bar over top of my dog, I would see that if I go over to the number, that represents 8 students. Next, I see if I start where fish are and I go up my number line and across, that represents 4 students. So 8 minus 4 equals 4. Let's go on to the next problem. Okay, so now we're going to look at our second problem. We're going to use the same bar graph. Here is question number 2. I'll read it to you. How many more cats and fish than dogs and birds are there? Whoa, this is a doozy of a question here. This is one of those challenging questions. This is what the ones I like to call my college type of questions. So let's see. If I have the word and lets me know that I'm putting something together. When I put something together, I have to add. So cats and fish. I got to put the cats and the fish together. But it also says that I'm going to have to add or put together dogs and birds. Okay, So cats and fish I add together first. Then I'm going to do something. Oh, I'm going to add together because I have the word and my dogs and my birds. Okay, but I'm not finished with this question. Lastly, woo, there's a third step to this one. I have to find out the difference between the cats and the fish and the dogs and the bird. I want you to press pause here, please, and see if you can figure it out for yourself. Now, let's look at the answer. So, how many more cats and fish than dogs and birds are there? Let's look at the first one. First, you have to add the cats and fish. That will be 7 plus 4 equals 11 because I have 7 cats and 4 fish. Now, let's see what I have to do. I have to put together the dogs and the birds. Then I add the dogs and the birds together. That will be 8, because there are 8 dogs, plus 1, because there's 1 bird. But I'm not finished. Now I have to tell the difference between the two. Last I subtract. I subtract the 11 minus the 9. And 11 minus 9 equals 2. Woo, that one was a doozy. Okay, everybody, now we're going to be looking at a different type of graph called a line plot. In this graph, a line plot, we use a number line to show our data on. Each x represents 1, so we count each x by 1. Here's the title, Second Grade Heights. Kids' height in inches. So each one of these numbers represents an inch. We have 43, 49, 51, 53, 54. So the number of students in the second grade that were 43 inches, we see 1, 2. Now let's go over to the question. How many kids are 53 inches tall? Please press pause. Okay, now let's look at the answer. There are 3 students that are 53 inches tall. Well, let's count. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so now we're looking at our second question with our line plot. We're going to take the information from our line plot to answer this question. If 4 more kids were 43 inches tall, how many kids would be 43 inches tall? Well, I've got to use the information here, but it's telling me to add some more kids. So it's saying if 4 more kids. I'm going to press pause here and see if you can figure it out. Well, are you ready for the answer? I know I sure am. If 4 more kids were 43 inches tall, how many kids would be 43 inches tall? First thing I have to do, I have to locate 43 inches on my line plot. This is where 43 inches is, 1, 2. So there are already 2 students that are 43 inches. But they told us, what if we had 4 more? Then I would add 4 plus the 2 that I have to equal 6, because 4 plus 2 equals 6. Okay, so next we're going to move to a pictograph or a picture graph. And in this graph, we know that pictures help to represent our data or information. Let's look at our title, Apples Sold. So I look at these labels. I see January, February, March, April. But wait a minute. Down here, I see a picture of a whole apple and it says equal 10. So that means that each time I see one whole apple, I'm going to count by the number 10. You are correct. So if I see a half of an apple, I'm only going to count by the number 5. So if I go to January, how many apples were sold? 10. If I were to go to February, let's see how many apples were sold. Well, this is 10. 10 plus 10 is 20, 30, 40. So 40 apples were sold in February. Let's go to March. This is 10, 20. But this is 5. So 20 plus 5 is 25. You got that right. Now let's look at April. April has 1, so that's 10, and another apple, 2, that's 20. So here is your question that I need you to go and answer for me. How many apples were sold in March? Can you tell me how many apples were sold in March? Please press pause. Okay, everyone, are you ready to find out our answer? I sure am. There were 25 apples sold in March. Okay, so let's move on to the next question. Okay, for our sixth and final question of the day, we're going to take the same pictograph or pictograph and we're going to answer the following question. Question number 6. Farmer Brown says that he sells more apples in April than in March. Is this true? Explain why or why not. I want you to press pause here, please, and give me your answer. Well, are you ready to check your answer? Let's see. It is not true because in April, as we can see here, he sold 20 apples. And in March, he sold 25 apples. And 25 is more than 20. Thank you so much for joining me today and doing this review of our pictographs, line plots, and bar graphs. Have a great day.